So, what's your advice for doctors who were, in the crossroads, whether they should continue clinical, they still love practicing, or should they go into non-clinical? Like, what would your advice be for them?
I would say, I mean, each person is different. So you have to go with your calling. So what is your calling? So I knew what my calling was very early on when I decided to leave anesthesia and come back home for my family. But so my first, my only advice to them is don't just rush into something for the sake of rushing in. I know the stresses which is happening with our healthcare in Malaysia now and doctors in KKM, etc. But have an end goal in mind. So for me, I knew my end goal was pharmaceutical, but how long it took me to get there was a while. So if you know what you want to do, you know that your strengths are in this, then by all means go for it and learn the skills that you need to learn to enter whatever you want to do. But look at the bigger picture of things that that there's so many different ventures you can enter as a doc. I mean, using your MBBS or as a doctor to enter what you want based on your strengths. So just don't jump into something immediately for the sake of jumping in.
How long did it take you before you got to where you want to be, which is pharma?
So from the time I left to I got it, I would say 2 years, Selena, 2 years, 2 years. So it took me that. I mean, I never gave up. So when I came back home, I applied for pharma. I never got in. So I can say that the pharma, I won't go into the names of the pharma I applied to. I'm in AZ now, but it took me roughly 2 years. But what I did was I told myself that, all right, I am entering pharmaceutical. I want to be in pharmaceutical. I want to be in medical affairs because it sort of, I had that bond with it in that sense. So the more I read about it, the more I kept up to date with stuff. I felt that I connected with it. I can't explain how, but I felt that, all right, this is what I want to do. This is what I can foresee myself doing. So, but yeah, in the long run, it took me four failed attempts at four pharma interviews, 1 year in a med device company undergoing sales to marketing. And that taught me a lot of things, which I use now in my role in pharmaceutical as well. Because obviously, when you're in pharmaceutical, you're not just in medical affairs. You're having a cross-functional collaboration with sales, with commercial, with marketing.
What did you have to pick up along the way so that you could land this job?
Okay, so I would say the things that I had to pick up along the way was my interviewing skills. I'm very nervous as a person. I think very fast, as you can see now. The main thing that was different in medicine was my anesthesia interview was 15 minutes. You go in there, they ask you a case-based stuff, etc. Whereas the interviews to enter any company, even my med device company, was a two-stage interview, whereas in pharmaceutical, it's a three-stage interview. So I had to pick up interviewing skills, I had to pick up communication skills, and I had to pick up PowerPoint skills.
Wow. Okay. So, three stages. What were the three stages like?
So basically, med affairs. So the first stage of the process is obviously they give you a clinical paper. So obviously, in medical affairs, there are different therapy areas. So I was applying for oncology, so they gave me a clinical paper, which is a New England Journal of Medicine paper. Based on one of the drugs in our therapy area. So, I mean, you know what a clinical paper is like. So you got to, it's given to you maybe 3 to 4 days before the interview, in a sense, and you've got to dissect that paper and then present the paper during your interview. And the paper can be from 12 to 16 pages, but obviously going into your abstract, your primary endpoint, your secondary endpoint, etc. So that's one aspect of the first interview. And then the second aspect of the interview is obviously all the questions based on why you're in the pharmaceutical, etc.
Okay. So, what's your advice for those doctors who want to get into pharma?
So my advice is obviously really, really brush up on three key things I would say. Firstly is your interviewing skills. A lot of times, I would say for me as well, doctors don't interview that well when they want to enter pharmaceutical. They just don't have that knack of talking, etc. Secondly is really, really brush up on your scientific knowledge. Because when you come in and you present, just say on heart failure, for example, you're going to be asked questions on heart failure. It's things that you know as a doctor. So put in that effort before the interview to actually read up around the disease area. A lot of time people have come in and they don't bother reading up. So what's the point then? Thirdly, is actually really, really the biggest part of thing is understanding what a scientific paper is, because this is going to be a bread and butter moving forward once you enter as an MSL, and understanding how to dissect a paper, understanding what that whole paper really means. And this means reading up different journals, doing journal clubs. If you're still in medicine, doing journal clubs in a hospital, or just reading up more papers to actually understand what a scientific paper is solely is.